Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and I'm so excited to be continuing the series, The Best Movies of the Decade. And it's time for Chapter 2, where I will break down the year 2011. That's right, the best films of 2011. Now, I am doing a 10-part series here from the years 2010 to 2019, and I already did 2010, and I got to be honest, 2010 was a better year in movies, for me at least. 2011 was a little tougher, especially in the second half of my top 10 list of trying to figure out, do I really believe in this one more than that one? I'll break down my thought process, but I am sure this is not going to be the list that you all have. There are definitely going to be some odd choices in here. But again, I'm going with my gut. It's my channel, my show, and I wanted to do my movies. The movies that held up for me personally, and I hope this inspires you to put together your list down below in the comments. The way I do this show is I'll break down my top 10. Before we get to the top 3, I will show you my honorable mentions, as well as the films that you might have expected to see here that I just didn't hold up for me. So let's get to it. Starting with number 10, definitely an odd choice. I'm sure some of you are going to think, what? Some of you are going to go, hell's yeah. But this one's there more just because I liked it. And it really started something that I think has never been the same since, or never as good as this. And that is number 10, Fast Five. Look, this is a silly, silly movie, but I think the best of that franchise. And look, I want to give that franchise a nod. If I were to pick one film from the Fast franchise now, there's going to be 9 of them. My God. Fast Five is to me where it really took off. They brought the best of all the people together. Justin Lin did together an awesome heist movie in beautiful Rio de Janeiro. They brought in The Rock to be a great antagonist. And it just was, I think, the first time the movie really clicked on all cylinders, pun intended. It's just a really fun movie to watch. And every time I catch this, I end up getting sucked in and wanting to watch the heist again. Great action. That scene where they drive off the bridge and then they jump off the car there, and the scene with they're dragging the safe down the streets of Rio. It's just a lot of fun. It's a really fun movie, and it reignited this entire franchise to be what it is now. And I think while it keeps getting more and more extreme and silly, Fast Five will always be the one that I think they all know. That was lightning in a bottle. We cracked it. The Rock came in. Han's back. We got Gail Gadot. We got Ludacris. We got Tyrese. Everyone's there to sort of really give the Fast and the franchise the best I think it's done. So Fast Five to me is there out of just the love of, I love that kind of action film, and when it's done right, and I think Fast Five, they did it really well. But there were some other films this year, particularly some action films that will be still on my list, but this is more out of respect to the entire Fast franchise. All right, now a more serious contender coming in at number 9. It's Moneyball, Bennett Miller's true story, starring Brad Pitt as Billy Bean. Look, I'm not a baseball fan. I'm not a statistics fan. The fact that I really thoroughly enjoyed this film about baseball and statistics really shows just how strong of a film it was. It's a great script, great performance, and put Jonah Hill on the map as a dramatic actor. He's really great in this role. It's a surprising turn for him. He does a fantastic job. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman, fantastic as well. Chris Pratt in the film, if you don't remember. And I think a really great turn by Brad Pitt as well. It's just a really strong story and a fascinating story about one man's sort of challenging the game to really reinvent himself, as well as the whole game of baseball in general. I really liked it. And I like the scene where the daughters, Brad Pitt's just losing all these games. Plays this, he's a manager or coach. I don't understand I can't exactly, but he runs the Oakland A's, and he's trying to figure out how to get them to win, and they have no money, no budget. And he meets Jonah Hill, who's like a business major, and he just realizes you don't want to just overpay for these players. You want to find the most, who gets on base. Who gets on base the most? Those are the players you want to buy. And a lot of those people who get on base, people don't realize, are actually cheaper than you think. And so he goes against all the rules and works with Jonah Hill, and they create this team based off of the stats instead of the price tags. Who's going to get on base the most? And it works. But it's a very tough time, and there's a really cute scene with him and his daughter where he's like, Dad, are you going to lose your job? And where did you hear that? Well, sometimes I go on the internet. Well, don't go on the internet, or watch TV, or talk to people. That relates to me. It's a cute moment of just the reality of when you go against the grain with something and people don't like you, things can go obviously wrong, and you don't want to ever go against what you believe in. And I think this is a great story of redemption, finding your way, reinventing yourself, that it's inspiring still. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed this film, Moneyball by Bennett Miller, number 9 on my list. Another one, a lot of people thought this was a sappy one, but I enjoyed it. Number 8, The Help. From Tate Taylor, great performances by Emma Stone, Bryce Dallas Howard, Octavia Spencer, Viola Davis. It's a touching story, and it's a funny story, and I just think it's an important story. It's a really at a time when, as they say, sort of even in its own trailer, how they had the help, all these African American help. They would let these black women watch their children and raise their children, but not let them use the same bathroom. And it just was just this is a real thing that happened in history that still is hard for me to believe that people were okay with this. And Bryce Dallas Howard plays this, just what a amazing villain of just Minnie. She's just and all these women coming forward, all the help coming to tell their story because they hate her so much. And just the entitlement and the fact that there were a lot of people back in the day who were just like, yeah, no, I'm better than you. Get away from me. And the fact that this film was not only to handle that topic, I think really strongly, but also just make it lighthearted but still important. It walked the genre line, and I think still was powerful and strong and important. And it's a good premise. Emma Stone's an author, wants to write a book, so she wants to write a book from the perspective of the help. And of course, they're like, no way the help's going to help tell you their story. They're not going to want to do this. They'll get in trouble. And of course they do. It becomes a bestseller and everything else. And then the book itself is a bestseller. This isn't a true story, but definitely based on realities of history put together in a nice, more sugary, sweet, type of film. But I liked it. I thought it was strong. I thought it was strong performances. It got a lot of attention and awards, and it was a huge box office success for a reason. And I do think it holds up. It's a fun movie. And I liked it. Coming in at number 7, this one still is strong with me. Alexander Payne's The Descendants, starring George Clooney. George Clooney gives a fantastic performance. It's very subdued through most of the movie. You're watching him unravel in a way, but in a realistic way. Not someone who's just screaming out loud, but you can just see the turmoil in his performance, even though it's subtle and small. But the film about him and his marriage, his wife is in a boating accident and falls into a coma and seemingly not going to come out. He is then forced to really take a lead with his 2 daughters who are already having trouble. Shailene Woodley, in a great performance, one of her first performances, she's fantastic as the older daughter, having sort of substance abuse problems. And then the younger daughter, just trying to cause fights at school. They're all both acting out for attention because clearly there's been some strain in their marriage even before this accident happened. They have not been close, and they're not happy. So what happens when the person you love, who you're falling out of love with, is a theory on her deathbed, and then you learn the secrets that she's been hiding, and then he's got to find all this out, and you find out that she was cheating on him, and he goes to confront the person who she was cheating with, and it's all done still with a dark comedy, but some really serious, touching moments. Robert Forster gives a fantastic performance as his this dying wife's father. It's a lot of really great performances. Beau Bridges, Matthew Lillard, Judy Greer does a really fantastic scene. Rob Hubel, funny scene. But a lot of just funny, heartbreaking moments that just Alexander Payne really just wrings out of you. You're watching this family attempt to move on and heal and forgive. It's a huge story of forgiveness when you really think you can't forgive for the atrocities someone's done, and but you realize you have to. It's a beautiful story and beautifully shot in Hawaii. I really like this film. It still sticks with me. It was one of my favorites that year. I think there was a reason this won the best screenplay of that year at the Oscars. Nat Faxon and Jim Rash wrote a fantastic script, and Alexander Payne. It's just a really strong film that still stuck with me. And as I remembered and refreshed and played clips as I was building these lists, I remembered how much I liked this and wanted to rewatch it again. Again, a lot of my movies on the list, it's a rewatchability. Do I want to, as I refresh and remember, did I want to go back and stop prepping for this, or did I want to go rewatch the movie? And if I really judging on the scale of that, that's how I deemed a lot of these movies and their placement in this list of, I gotta rewatch this one. So Descendants is number 7 on my list. Coming up at number 6. Now look, before I set up number 6, in fact, there might be a commercial here. So stick along, watch for the commercial. That's how this channel gets supported. Okay, thank you. Number 6. This one, it's really there out of respect to its franchise. I It's not my favorite entry in the franchise, but it was the final entry in the franchise. And so for that reason alone, it's there. And it was a very strong franchise. And that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, coming in at number 6 on my list. Look, this movie should be higher on my list. And I'm sure for some it is. But this, first of all, I didn't like them cutting it into 2 parts. But then one could argue they're all sort of parts. Every movie has parts, but I don't know. I think every movie does have sort of its own story. As the films get older, they do become seemingly more chapters instead of standalone journeys. And part 2 is the guiltiest of that, I think. Part 1 of Deathly Hallows is just, to me, it was really rough. It's a lot of exposition and stuff from the book that the fans clearly wanted, but then when it's over, there's really nothing of worth. You're like, all right, well, let's get to the climax, which is part 2. And so that ultimately hurts part 2 as well, because the movie is really just the climax. That said, there's some really emotional moments, and it's stuff we've been waiting for so many movies. And to see these performers grow up and give their final performances, and to see where everything goes and with the characters, there are some strong moments in this, and so that's why it's there. I do respect the movie, and I respect this franchise as a whole, because I think tremendous undertaking, starting by Chris Columbus, and then Mike Newell and Alfonso Cuarón, David Yates, so many people coming in and out to help lift this franchise up and continue to keep it going strong. And brilliant casting. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson. I mean, who would have thought they not only would it be so perfectly cast, but then really keep the roles going so strong as they grew. They did. They pulled it off. They've all of them, even Rupert Grint's done some recent fun indie stuff. I think all 3 of these people have proven themselves to be worthy actors throughout this process and have grown and matured in their own ways. So this is definitely I'm not going to call it a pity placement. I do think it's a strong film, but I wish it was higher on the list. And for that reason, it's not. It's right sort of smack in the middle, because I want to respect this. I think the franchise of Harry Potter is stronger than the franchise of Fast and the Furious. And so similarly, I give it there since it's the finale. So that's why this is here. Number 5 on my list. This one, again, the fact that Harry Potter isn't above this is weird, but I just like this movie better. And as I rewatched and went back, I loved the start. It's an origin story that works, and that is X-Men First Class. Matthew Vaughn bringing the characters back. Look, it's not a perfect film, but I think there's some really great stuff in it. I love introducing Michael Fassbender as Magneto. I love the beginning where he becomes like a Nazi hunter to avenge his mother and everything else. That story of Charles and Xavier and Magneto, it's just it's so strong. It's what keeps the whole franchise together, I think. And even with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen days, I think Michael Fassbender and Charles Xavier, I'm forgetting, why am I blanking? James McAvoy, their performances as Professor X and Magneto and their friendship, it's really what the movie is all about. The franchise, I would argue, even all of X-Men. You have 2 friends, one of which wants to use the powers in a different way, one of them for good, one of them seemingly for bad, but they both ultimately have their own point of views that are, hard, sometimes you have to listen to. And I think that's what makes the franchise work so well. So to see this franchise start so strong with them and seeing their origins and why they are the way they are, and then bringing in these younger recruits to sort of fulfill their bidding, and are they ready? I think there's a lot of really great stuff in here. The whole killing will not bring you peace. It's a strong entry into the rebooted X-Men, and I think I would argue might be one of the best X-Men. Debatable. X-Men 2, great, but again, it's a strong entry, and from a rewatchability standpoint and just my own recollection and memory, I really like this film enough that it's number 5 on my list. Number 4, before we get to the ones that didn't make it, number 4, another entry in a franchise that I think is due its respect, and I think people forget about that it started so strong, but it's a fantastic film, and that is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Rupert Wyatt, Andy Serkis as Caesar. The beginning of this is the one with James Franco, and he's not the best part of the movie, but he does okay. But it's just a really surprising reboot that worked. That's so rare these days, where you're like, well, come on, especially coming after Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. You're just like, this can't work again, but it does, and it's really strong. You're rooting for these apes. You watch them and what they're doing, and Caesar is just such a fantastic character. And then it only gets better with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is a brilliant movie with him and Kobo. War of the Planet of the Apes, also strong, but I do think it sort of peaks with Dawn. It starts really strong with Rise, peaks with Dawn, and then, comes back to War. Rise, fantastic start to, I think, a great franchise, and Dawn takes it up next, even higher. I really like this film a lot. I love the they have Draco Malfoy there as sort of the bad guy. You doing the take your damn stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape. But it kind of works, and then it triggers the Caesars. No, and it starts the whole ball, and you're like, that's okay. I actually was okay and kind of believed how this worked. This world of apes, of where they came from, why are they so angry? What happened? It was our planet. Damn you. It all works in a cool, updated, serious way that I got to give it props. And I think Rupert Wyatt, Matt Reeves gets a lot of the props for the second two movies, but Rupert Wyatt set the tone for this really brilliantly. And Andy Serkis, fantastic performance by him in motion capture, watching the birth from the baby to him grow, and why he learns everything but regards humans so, the right way. It's a very, very strong story. I loved it. I'm glad I got to put it back on this list. Number 4, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. All right, now it's time for my top 3. But before we do that, I'm going to go through some films that didn't make the cut, films that almost made the cut, and films that you might be like, well, Andy, where is that film? But first, a quick commercial. Thank you. If the pre-roll didn't work, oh well, but that's how the channel is funded. So thank you for bearing with those ads. All right. Almost made the cut. Crazy Stupid Love. I do like the movie. Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, Emma Stone, Julianne Moore. It's just a really creative and original script. You're watching Steve Carell and his marriage fall apart with Julianne Moore, and then he goes up and meets Ryan Gosling as a ladies' man, and then you don't realize, spoiler alert, you don't realize that the girl he falls in love with is Steve Carell's daughter. It's his daughter. It's just a good parallel story. It's written by the guy who does This Is Us, which I've given up on. It's gotten too crazy, but first season or so of This Is Us was fantastic. Dan Fogelman, and you can see a lot of that in this movie. It's sort of a funnier, zanier moment of just sort of how crazy life can be. But I think great performances, really funny, heart, and just emotionally strong script, relatable, fun, surprising moments. I do like it. It just wasn't strong enough to go on my main list, but I did enjoy it. And there were 2 others that were very close to making my list that I think very underrated. Limitless, starring Bradley Cooper. Fantastic premise. Great performance by Bradley Cooper about, a guy who just can't fully get his thoughts in order, can't finish his book, etc. So he gets this pill that unlocks the full potential of his brain, and then he can really do anything. And immediately overnight, is killing it in the stocks, and finishes his book, and knows all math problems, and learns languages, and becomes just star of the town. And then obviously people are like, well, who's this guy? And bad stuff ensues. And then, so what do you do when you run out of the pill? It's just a cool story. Became a TV show. I didn't watch it, but I did think there was a very smart franchise, smart move of Bradley Cooper, De Niro, cool in it. I liked it. It's one of those movies that it's just like, I watch it when it's on. I enjoy it. And I think it's a good underrated movie. It just ultimately didn't last or stand taller than the ones I put on the list for me. Another one, similarly really cool, Source Code, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Duncan Jones. Really cool premise about a guy who's reliving kind of Edge of Tomorrow style, Groundhog Day. He's reliving the last 8 minutes before a train blows up, and he's got to go back and use the source code. They're able to put him in the memories of the dead people, but only the last 8 minutes, so he can go and figure out who the bomber is to avoid another bomb going off. And of course, more stuff happens, but really engrossing thriller, cool premise. Jake Gyllenhaal does a great performance. Michelle Monaghan, great performance. I really liked it. It's cool. It's surprising. Stuck with me, and it's one of those ones I wanted to watch again, but I remember being a little confusing. It just wasn't that strong that I made the top 10, but worthy of calling out as another great film. Another one, Midnight in Paris, Woody Allen, Owen Wilson, and Rachel McAdams. It's a really cute and fun, interesting story. I'm not always a huge fan of Woody Allen's work. take the man aside, focus just on the work. I don't always love his movies, especially if recent, but this one was really solid. About a writer whose writer's block, doesn't feel very smart. He's clearly not in a good relationship. She's wants all material stuff and he doesn't. And then after midnight, Paris comes alive and he goes back in the past to meet with all the sort of literary people of the past. And it's a really sort of fun history lesson, as well as sort of view on materialism and love. And it's a cute, fun story. And I do think Owen Wilson's great in it. And it's a strong story. Almost made the cut. But didn't really need to rewatch it, but I remember it being good. Quickly going through Take Shelter with Michael Shannon, really great. A good one to watch, just didn't ultimately better. And 50-50 with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I did really enjoy it. Didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it enough that it almost was there. It was one of those that made it at the end. And then Thor that year, not enough to the top 10, but worth mentioning. Hugo, I want to rewatch it. I remember liking it, not loving it. Maybe better on a rewatch. I didn't get to rewatch it, but I remember that Martin Scorsese 3D was actually pretty cool. Sacha Baron Cohen, Chloe Moretz, and Ben Kingsley, and Jude Law. I remember being very cute, good kids movie. It's one I got to rewatch, but Hugo didn't make the list. And then Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. Really amazing sequence, probably the best of the franchise when he's climbing up that building. He really did it. I still think that's great. A lot of cool elements introduced, and I liked the movie, but overall not one of the best of the franchise. Even though Brad Bird does great. Ones that didn't make it: The Artist. Look, I liked it. I just think it was a kind of a fad that doesn't hold up over time. It was good. I liked it, but not one I need to rewatch. Tree of Life. Terrence Malick, couldn't get into it. It was rough for me. That's just too highbrow for me. And then War Horse, Steven Spielberg. Yeah, didn't. I watched it, forgot about it. No interest in going back. That's just me. Worst though of the year, the worst film of 2011. I mean, come on, Dunkachino, guys, Jack and Jill. It is bad. It's bad. I know I made a video saying Uncut Gems is worse. It's not a worse film. Uncut Gems by Adam Sandler is a better film. But I'd rather watch Jack and Jill again. On Uncut Gems, I know this is a very unpopular opinion of mine. Respect to those who liked it, but separate conversation. Jack and Jill is the worst. I will set the record clear. All right, time to go to number 3 on my list to finish out the top 3 of 2011. Do you know what it's going to be? Have you figured it out? Let's get to number 3. Surprisingly, I went back and I remembered how much I love this film, and I think greater than the first. It's a part 2, and it's greater than the first one. In fact, it's the best of the trilogy. And I think a lot of people don't realize how strong the messages are in this, and that's Kung Fu Panda 2. Some beautiful stuff in there, just about finding your inner peace. We have Po, played by Jack Black, the panda, has finally sort of learned the art. He can do everything, but then greater villain, greater sacrifices, a bigger journey he now must go through now that he has the power, and he must learn the power within himself. And really, such a touching scene. The film, beautifully directed by Jennifer Young Nelson, but one moment in particular just still sticks with me. It's filled with a lot of great moments. It's fun, it's cute, it's funny, great kids film. But my God, there's one scene in that movie that's just so beautifully done where we see baby Po in flashbacks, and we see the destruction that he was born in, and his parents are all murdered, and he's left in a vegetable carton, and he's sort of left there where he's just crushed. It's the perfect story of Act 2, at the end of Act 2, where our hero falls in the worst way, and you're just crushed by it. And then he's so depressed and feels like he can't win the battle, and then he's told it's the rest of your story, who you choose to be. Who are you, Panda? And then it flashes, and you get the flood of him and his adoptive father, the goose, and all the journey he's went on, and the people he's met, and how positive he's made in his life. And it's just such a beautiful message in a beautiful film. And he learns his own inner self and his importance. And it's such a strong message for kids. And an overall really beautiful trilogy of learning Buddhism and so many religions in that franchise are being taught to kids without even people realizing it. Kung Fu Panda trilogy, really underrated, criminally underrated, and part 2 is so stellar. I advise you, go watch it again. Some really funny sequences, touching sequences, and I got to give Kung Fu Panda props, and part 2, to me, stands the tallest, so that's why it's number 3 on my list here. Number two, look, I love this film. Bridesmaids. It's really, really funny. Really funny. Guys, there was a reason Paul Feig was like such a in-demand director and they gave him Ghostbusters because he did Bridesmaids and it's freaking hilarious. And I watch it and then the real introduction to Melissa McCarthy before I think people got tired of her. This one's so funny. I mean, the whole cast, all of these women, hilarious. And Kristen Wiig, Maya Rudolph, Rose Byrne, Ellie Kemper, Wendy Levitt, Wendy McLennan Covey. They're fantastic in this. And John Hamm. There's so many great cameos and supporting roles. This Judd Apatow produced comedy written by Kristen Wiig. It's really, really strong. It still holds up. I was laughing again as I watched the clips. I can't deny it. Don't love Ghostbusters, but I love Bridesmaids. It's funny, touching, relatable, really fun stuff in there. That I just think, when they make comedy for women, it's never that raunchy and that spot on and honest and genuinely funny. You got to give props when it is. This is beautifully done. And they've been pushing her to do part 2 and she never does it. And I applaud her for not just taking the money like Anchorman or Dumb and Dumber or Coming to America. They're all out there just buying it in. Who knows how long she'll be able to hold out because she hasn't made another. Well, she's in Wonder Woman, so Kristen Wiig's doing okay. But I applaud her for sticking to her guns and just making a strong standalone comedy, letting it be what it is, and moving on. But Bridesmaids is worth the respect. Kudos, Kristen Wiig and team, really, and Paul Feig, really, really funny movie that I had to give as number 2. It's the funniest, I think, if you're gonna put together the top 10 comedies of the decade, you can't ignore Bridesmaids. It's up there, guys. It's funny. All right. Number one of the year of 2011. I keep mixing it. Best movie of 2011 for me. Here it is. Here it is. Drive. I like this movie a lot. Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. It's like, imagine John Wick as a driver, but like in a more artistic, stylish, like, Oscar baity drama. But still like a love story and an awesome action. And you got yourself Drive. It's a really cool story. I think the performances are great. The soundtrack is killer. I had this on loop. And then as I remembered, and we did this list, I've been replaying it again. Fantastic soundtrack. But performances, not only Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Albert Brooks, Ron Perlman, Oscar Isaac, Bryan Cranston, guys, that elevator scene is so fantastically choreographed and done. There's so much tension in this movie. You don't know where it's going to go. For those that don't know what it's about, go watch it. But he's a Los Angeles stunt driver by day and a getaway driver with heists at night. And sort of keeps to himself, but he falls in love with sort of this neighbor of his who seemingly is clearly not in the greatest place. She's a mother, but her husband comes back from jail and he owes a lot of people money. So the driver feels for him and tries to help, takes on a task to sort of pay off the ex-husband's debt. And of course doesn't go the way it's supposed to go. It's just a really exciting, just beautifully shot, amazingly directed, everything about it just top notch. And I remember I declared it my top of the year then. It still holds up as the top of the year now. I really, really like Drive a lot. I think it's a worthy also on the list of top of the decade. And it's the one I really wanted of all these movies. The one I was like, what do I want to rewatch? Yeah, I'm going to go watch Drive. So that ultimately was the final nail in the coffin to solidify it, which I've already sort of declared as my top previously. But Ryan Gosling in Drive, fantastic movie. So there you have it. My top of 2011. I'm getting confused because I'm doing these in order. But 2011, those are my top 10, the ones that didn't make it, the worst and everything else. Let's hear yours. Tell me your top 3, top 5, top 10 in the comments down below, or hit me up on social media if you want to talk about it. Again, these are my thoughts. They probably won't align with everybody, but thank you for hearing me out. And stay tuned. Coming up next, the best of 2012. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.